Let's bring in the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, I want to read you part of a Wall Street Journal editorial. First, though, before I get there, just back page. Evan, it's been 403 days now since Vladimir Putin seized Evan and holding him for committing absolutely no crime at all. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene might want to think about that before she tries to do Vladimir Putin's bidding again, as well as the other Republicans of the backbench. They keep trying to do that. But I want to read to you part of this editorial from the Wall Street Journal. The president was right to recognize the, quote, ferocious surge in anti-Semitism in America and around the world. And his condemnation of it on campus is important. Violent attacks, destroying property is not peaceful protest, he added. It is against the law. He's right, and he should name names. National Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, whose campus chapters led the encampments, called October 7th, quote, a historic win for the Palestinian resistance. That's the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust that SJP were calling a historic win. Columbia's SJP declared, quote, full solidarity with the Palestinian resistance on October 9th, praising the, quote, historic attack despite the odds. And, you know, Jonathan, I'm so glad the Wall Street Journal editorial page brought that up, because it's something I was just, I just keep thinking about as debates about these protests go on. These groups that were running these protests, they're claiming they're running it because of the people of Gaza. No, they were praising the slaughter of Jews. They were praising the raping of Jews. They were praising women being torn from their homes, daughters being raped repeatedly, to rape to death, and then paraded around like animals around Gaza while people cheered. They were calling that, I'm sorry, I've got to keep going. Little babies being shot in their cribs, in their bassinets. These groups that ran the college protests were calling that a historic win for the Palestinian people. They were calling children being forced to watch their parents being shot point blank range, and children and parents being forced watching their own children being slaughtered before their eyes. These groups that organized and ran the college campuses that Columbia faculty members saluted, they were calling that a historic win right after the slaughter. So they can say it was about bombing in Gaza. No, it was about, well, exactly what they say it's about, right? When people say who they are, you believe them? It was about genocide against the Jews, from the river to the sea, wiping Israel off the face of the earth.
Yeah, look, Students for Justice in Palestine, Joe, it's about the farthest thing that you could imagine from the Greensboro Four or from the protesters of the 60s. As you said, this is a group of people who applaud slaughter. And I should say at ADL, you know, we track extremist organizations like SJP. And on October the 8th, while we were still trying to figure out what had happened on the morning of 10/7, we were still trying to understand who was alive and who was dead. SJP released organizing toolkits and discussion guides and action plans on October the 8th, long before the IDF went into Rafah, long before the IDF went into Gaza, because this is a group that doesn't want a two-state solution, Joe. They want intifada. They want to globalize the intifada, which Jewish people appropriately hear is the mass murder of Jews everywhere. And, you know, we come back to the president's speech, right? What he did yesterday in this moment of unprecedented anti-Semitism was give an unprecedented statement of solidarity and support. I've never heard a president give a speech like this before, and I worked in a West Wing. You know, I've worked in a couple White Houses. I know what it takes to put something like this together. He was clear, he was crisp, and he drew that line, as he said, from the Shoah to Hamas. And that was important because, you know, I'm here in Philadelphia today, Joe. I was at Penn last night, sitting with students and faculty members at the University of Pennsylvania, as I've done at Harvard and USC and Columbia and other places. And these students, they are desperate, they are exhausted, and they are angry because they don't feel protected and supported. President Biden said, I see you. I have an ironclad commitment, and I think that they and the country needed to hear that yesterday.
You know, Willie, when I always talk about how important it is for presidents to go to hurricane zones, when people have just been through a hurricane and their entire lives have been wiped out, a president being there, and I've seen it firsthand. Bill Clinton wasn't particularly popular in my district, but when he came after hurricanes, man, it meant something to those people. They're like, the President of the United States is here with us and he cares. Those kids, and I call them kids because I've got kids in college, and when I do it, I hope people understand it's a term of endearment, and my heart hurts for them because I know I know they're young, and it's just horrible. They've been chased across campuses. Their parents have called them home. I know specifically of so many instances on certain days where they hid in their dorm rooms and were afraid to go to class. Of course, Columbia, had remote classes at the end because they couldn't protect their Jewish students. How important, I know how important it is that the President of the United States stood up and said, I'm with you. This is unacceptable, what has happened to you. And Willie, I'm so glad to hear from Jonathan that this was the first of its kind in a speech, just powerfully supporting the Jews and striking out against anti-Semitism wherever it may be.
Yeah, there are a lot of Jewish students, as you both have said, who don't feel safe and also don't feel seen. And as Jonathan, you put it a minute ago, President Biden said yesterday, we see you, even if your school presidents or administrations don't see you, even if they're canceling your graduations and putting your classes on Zoom and negotiating with people who are calling for intifada and from the river to the sea and giving them a fair hearing when they're not protecting you. That was a big moment. I'm curious what you thought, too, about the bipartisan nature of the event that we were talking about before, a striking picture of Speaker Johnson. Congressman Scalise was there, along with Hakeem Jeffries, the congressman from New York as well, the leader. What does that image mean to the country and to the world?
Wow. I think that image, Willie, means everything. I mean, look, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, standing up to hate shouldn't be hard. And to see Speaker Johnson, who doesn't agree with the president on much, and to see Minority Leaders Jeffries, and to see the president all there together, all standing, clapping together. Think about the State of the Union, where you stand up and clap based on your party affiliation. Yesterday, we were reminded we are all Americans, and we are all opposed to intolerance. And, you know, it's interesting, the point about are these kids. I mean, again, I sat with Penn Law School students yesterday who are going to Cravath, you know, who are going to clerk for federal judges. These are not young people like we think about them. These are sophisticated, measured individuals. By the way, there were faculty members there. One professor, she said in this roundtable, the environment here is hellacious. We need your help. I mean, to hear a 20-year member of the faculty craving, seeking some support and protection, that shouldn't be happening, not just at Penn, anywhere in America. But to your point, Willie, about the bipartisan nature, you guys all probably know that the Education Committee has called to testify, I believe it's next week, the president of Northwestern, the president of Rutgers, the chancellor of UCLA, and they are going to have to sit there in front of, Elise Stefanik and members on both sides and answer why are they negotiating with these individuals, many of whom, by the way, are not even students. I went to the encampment yesterday at Penn. These are not students. There's a reason why at Harvard they won't show IDs when asked. It's horrible. It needs to end. And again, the administration, I should say one other thing. It wasn't just a speech yesterday. The Department of Education, which has launched 100 Title VI investigations, released new guidance for university presidents on what launches a Title VI investigation. That means the students' civil rights are violated. And let me tell you, when you set up a blockade to prevent Jewish students from walking to class, when you demand to hear their political ideology before letting them pass, when you menace and threaten and stalk them, those are Title VI violations. And college presidents have a legal obligation.
Jonathan, when they have a circle and they say, we're not letting you walk across the main lawn, the main quad of the campus, and when you try to, they push out at you and push you away. I'm going to tell you, if I were a parent paying for that, for my student to go there, and they turned over the main quad to activists, many of whom who aren't students, many of whom were part of an organization that was applauding the raping and the slaughtering and the burning of Jews, the worst slaughter since the Holocaust. I would raise hell. This cannot stand where these weak administration officials are saying they're parts, you know what? They're parts of the campus where Jews can't walk because we have to respect these outsiders' First Amendment rights. It is so maddening to me. I can't even begin. And by the way, I just want to read this again, and then I'll go to Willie here. But I just want to read this again because, again, I think of people who watch our show as a family because they are a family. We've been together for 17 years, and I've gotten the loveliest emails. People who've disagreed with me saying that college campuses should not put up with this. But they always say, hey, it's the students. You've got to listen to the students. You've got to da-da-da. No, this has not been organized by the students. I want to read this again.
Correct.
The National Students for Justice in Palestine, the SJP, which are running all of this, whose campus chapters lead the encampments on October 7th. They called October 7th, quote, Willie, a historic win for the Palestinian resistance. And those people you saw in Colombia, their SJP chapter that ran it, declared full solidarity with the Palestinian resistance on October 9th, praising the, quote, historic act despite the odds. Mike Barnacle, what they're praising, again, these organizers that organize these protests, praising the worst slaughter of Jews since Adolf Hitler's final solution, the Holocaust.
Yeah, you know, Joe, the president obviously referred to that yesterday. He also referred to something that involves just what you're talking about right now. The fact that it was October 7th when this atrocity occurred, when this war crime occurred, October 7th. And yet, in the interim time between October 7th and today, so many people seem to have forgotten what happened on October 7th. And the president spoke to it yesterday. And Jonathan, when he was speaking to it, he was speaking about something called hate. And hate is a more powerful weapon than any bomb or any missile used in warfare. And hate exists today in an unparalleled way, I would think. And the idea that the president of the United States has to speak about the growth, the wild growth of anti-Semitism, at least to me, to this parent, was kind of shocking.
It is. I mean, I think people sometimes don't even realize it, but at the ADL, we track anti-Semitism. The number of incidents, verified acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence, Mike, they're up 140% year over year, almost 900% greater today than 10 years ago. I mean, at the ADL, this isn't, a storm. It's not even just a tsunami. This is like a planetary hurricane because it's not just happening in America. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in South America, like pointed attacks against Jewish communities. And yet it is astonishing that in 2024, the president has to say, love thy neighbor. Don't hate your fellow Americans simply because of who they are. Is that what we want? So I'm glad he said what he said. I hope, again, Israel's allowed to prosecute the war in Rafah against these terrorists who seek to slaughter Jews based solely on who we are. I mean, it's not right, not now, not ever. All of us should stand up against it.
CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you so much for being on this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And coming